Lessa from Luxembourg, Kimberly from San Fran, Anik from Montreal, Sebastian from the UK. Oh, Riham from Egypt, welcome. Valerie from Argentina, Nicoletta from Massachusetts, Sarah, what a beautiful name, from Finland. It's great to have all of you guys here. And look at that chat blowing up. And for those of you who are dialing in from an awkward time zone, I want to know we really appreciate you making time for us. We have right now, so I'm looking at the numbers. It just shot up to over 1,000 people, and we'll probably hit 2 to 3,000. So welcome, everyone. Mauritius, Greece, Trinidad. That's cool. Croatia, Jamaica, Germany. This is awesome because our WildFit population, our WildFit community also comes from all around the world. Eric himself is South African, lives between Canada, Dominican Republic, and Estonia. So he too has a really interesting background. I'm just going to ask my team, could you please share the slides so we can have these slides on, please? Now, what we're going to talk about today is the optimal way for human beings to transform their health. My story with WildFit started in a really unique way. I was at a gathering of best-selling authors. So, people who are in the personal growth movement, we have our own little like guilds and societies, and we go and we network and we help each other grow. So at this gathering, this dude by the name of Eric Edmeades was getting an award. And I was there, I was relatively new, and I was wondering, I wonder what this guy's getting an award for. And one by one, people got up on stage and they said, "Thank you, Eric, for transforming my health. Thank you, Eric, for transforming my health." And people spoke about how they had had weight that they wanted to shed for years and years and years, and they could never do it until this man stepped in and instantly transformed their health. And so at this event, now this was 2016, it was roughly January 2016. What happened is Eric went on to say, "Hey, I'm so grateful for this award. And for those of you who would like my help transforming your health, I'm going to do a private 90-day a coaching session just for you guys." So I jumped in because I had just turned 40 and I had go I looked at myself in the mirror at the age of 40 in 2016, and my health was nowhere where I wanted it to be. Next slide, please. So what you're seeing over here is my body transformation as I went through that 90-day protocol by Eric. So check this out, okay? So March 2016, Eric started the transformation in March. We had met in January. In March 2016, he started the transformation. I was at 22% body fat. I was 40 years old. I was failing my health goals. And I was the Mind Valley guy. I was an expert in meditation, in mindset, but I couldn't shift my own body. Now, by June 2016, a mere 3 months later, I had lost so much excess fat, I could not fit in any of my pants or any of my shirts. And you can see I got a lot leaner. About 2 years later, I went on with other Mind Valley protocols like 10X to build muscle, and my body completely transformed. Next slide, please. Today, I have the body of my dreams. But for 10 years prior to WildFit, I was seeking to get the body of my dreams, and I just couldn't succeed. I did fasting. I did various forms of dieting. I bought supplements that promised incredible results. I starved myself, but my body wouldn't lose weight. Now, what I didn't realize then is that dieting is a really complex process, and there's a huge mental element to it. Next slide, please. And this is where WildFit comes in. Next slide. You're going to learn how to improve your overall health. Next. You're going to learn how to amplify your energy. You see, when you lose weight, you don't just improve your health, you increase your energy. I used to need a 30-minute afternoon nap just to function after lunch. No longer need that. You amplify your energy. Next slide. Strengthen your immunity. I had young children, and they would crawl into bed with me in the morning and sneeze in my face, and I would catch all of the cooties and germs they got from their kindergarten. And I was getting sick frequently. After going on WildFit, I just stopped getting ill. Number 4, next slide. You upgrade your eating habits. I used to go to Starbucks 2 times a day, and I would get a Frappuccino or I would get a latte. I needed milk and sugar with my coffee. Within 1 month of WildFit, I was drinking my coffee and loving it. Black, no milk, no sugar. that had a huge impact on my health. Next slide. And I hit my ideal weight. And it didn't take me years and years and years. It happened within 90 days. But the beautiful part is this: it's now 8 years later, and I'm still at my ideal weight. I went from 22% to 14% body fat, and I'm still at 14% body fat. I get to eat anything I want. There's no willpower necessary. I simply have a different emotional attachment to food and a different set of behaviors and habits related to food. Next slide. And get this, I recently took a biological age test. I was 46 years old. I'm now 48, so I took this test 2 years ago. And my biological age was 20. I was 26 years younger than I needed to be. Next slide. And I also expect to live longer because this is what science tells you. When you start eating well, when you start losing excess weight, you dramatically increase your lifespan. And not only do you live more years, you add more life to the years you live. Next. So if you're interested in these ideas, we're going to take you on this incredible journey with Eric Edmeades. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to bring up Eric. Eric is going to share with you some of the most important things that he has learned about transforming human health. And whether you decide to enroll in WildFit or not, these stories and Eric's message is going to resonate with you. We want to give you value, immense value. And then I'm going to actually show you some insane stories of what has happened from fellow community members just like you when they've done WildFit. Okay, let's just share the first 5 stories, and then Eric, I'm going to bring you on. Okay, so we're going to play this video. Could we get sound on, please? Team, I think you just have to stop sharing and then reshare again, but click on turn on sound. It's a very annoying aspect of Zoom. They don't default the sound. Okay, so all good. And this video is going to shift your mindset in one way. Many of us think dieting is just about losing weight, but what you're going to see are all of these other things that happen when you start eating healthy, when you start going beyond traditional diets and you take the WildFit approach. Video, please. And again, if you don't hear the sound, it's okay because you'll see the subtitles, so you'll still get the message, okay? So all I did is I asked people in our audience, who here's done WildFit and what's your crazy WildFit story? Now watch what they say. Stop drinking alcohol. Shed 50 pounds. Chronic blocked nose disappeared. Got rid of Coke and potato chips for life. This person used to walk with a limp. His limp disappeared. He can now run and dance. And now note, I asked them, was it easy? And everyone said it was easier than they expected. And that's because of Eric's unique methodology of behavioral change dynamics. So there's the man on stage, Eric Edmeades. You're seeing him here get a standing ovation. And now I'd like to bring up Eric to blow your mind with what he's about to share. Please welcome Eric Edmeades.
Hey, Vishen, thanks so very much. Have you got my sound? All is good?
Yes, we can hear you great, Eric.
Oh, great. Excellent. You guys, I'm so excited. I'm looking at the chat and just seeing, first of all, it's such a great opportunity we have these days to connect so globally and digitally like this. But also, I've read some pretty inspirational things in there and also some things about what you guys want. So I want to really make this as practical and usable as possible for you, and really show you that, um, I feel though, and you guys can tell me in the chat if you've kind of had some of this feeling too. Sometimes I feel as though the diet industry has kind of like damaged all of our self-esteem. They've got us all feeling shame about the way we look, and guilt about the food we eat, and then more guilt about the little mistakes we make here and there. And I think what we can do right here is we can really end that. We can end it right now. So the first thing I want to say to you guys is that to understand how to release weight, and I know that some of you here are probably, matter of fact, tell me in the chat. I'd love to know what your sort of primary health goals are. Like, what would you like to achieve? And I know some of you are here specifically to, like, hey, let's shed a few pounds, let's improve the body composition. But I'm curious to hear what you guys are here for. And what I want to say is, in order to understand the releasing of weight, the first thing we need to understand is why weight comes on. Does that make sense? Right? Like, if you want to learn how to get rid of it, then you kind of have to understand why it gets on in the first place. So here's ultimately why people gain weight. It's kind of a multi-step process, but here it is. The first problem is that starvation was a major problem for us. It was a major problem for us as a species. We didn't have food production. We didn't have, fridges and convenience stores. And so our bodies evolved the capacity to store weight whenever there was surplus, in order to make it possible for us to survive the hard times. So we're very, very good at that, and we had to be. Your great-great-great-grandparents had to be very good at storing fat in order to get through the tough seasons. Are you guys with me? Does that make sense to you? So that's the problem, is that our body is perfectly designed for surviving when there's not a lot of food. So then, well, enter step two. Step two is we develop agriculture, and we start being able to grow our own food. And so we're no longer like dependent on Mother Nature anymore. Mother Nature wasn't very nice to us sometimes. Mother Nature sometimes had droughts. Mother Nature sometimes said, no rain for you and no food. But suddenly we were like, well, we've got agriculture, and now we can start creating some consistency of food supply. And that's when you first start to see some health problems really surfacing in human history. Then agriculture, let's go on. We're going to go into full-on food production. And then we figured out how to really produce food on a wide scale. And so now there was hardly any reason, like, people basically had access to food on a regular basis for the first time in human history. Then it went a little further. And that's the sort of fast food nation convenience thing that started. All of a sudden, fast food was prolifically available, convenient foods, frozen dinners, just stick it in the microwave. And suddenly, well, things began to change, and not for the better. Then a big thing happened, and that was the sugar industry trained us to become afraid of fat. And the whole low fat, fake fat, seed oil, vegetable oil, the whole bad fat industry was created. And that really caused a major, major problem for us. And then, well, the next one was the big upgrade to ultra processed foods. And you can see step by step by step, each of those things built on top of our evolutionary design to be good at gaining weight. You can see the problem. If you evolve to be very good at gaining weight, and then you develop agriculture and food production and ultra processed foods and all this stuff, then you trigger weight gain. And so that's really important to understand, is if we understand why it's happening, then that gives us a lot of power to turn it around. So what I want to share with you is exactly that. Like, how do we turn it around? But again, in order to understand that, we have to understand how not to turn it around. And this is difficult because I would say over the last 30 or 40 years, the food industry, and the diet industry they've hurt us. And so I want to know how many of you guys have tried these different things and found they didn't work. Here's the first one. Most diets are predicated on this idea: eat less and give up your favorite foods. Has anybody tried this? Does it feel good? Do you like that method? The eat less and give up your favorite foods. I don't think that that's such a great way to start. I don't think that doesn't seem to be working. At least it doesn't seem to be working for the vast majority of people. And then even if it does work for a little while, it results in relapse, right? It results in relapse, and that relapse generally results in regaining the weight, and often gaining more weight than you had in the first place. So then that leads to the second, big lie, and that is portion control. That's an extension of the same thing, eat less. So you now have to count your calories. Of course, right? You got to count your calories. You should weigh your food. And you could even join programs that made you count your special points. Again, all of these are a terrible extension of the idea that starvation is the answer for you. And it absolutely isn't. In fact, here's a problem. You remember what I said before? You were evolutionarily designed to gain weight. So if you then try to starve yourself, what your body says is, holy cow, we really are starving now. Let's not release any of our weight if we can help it. And so in a bizarre twist, by forcing people to calorie counting and portion control, what they've done is like made the metabolism get stuck, and now the weight won't come off at all. And then, of course, adds stress to the whole thing. So it's really interesting how down the garden path they've led us. Now, here's the next big myth, next big challenge that started up. And it really started in the 50s, but it just exploded in the 80s. And that's this: avoid fat. Now, I want you to know something really important about fat. It's important. Now, there are definitely good fats and bad fats, but here's the crazy part, is that we were all taught to be afraid of good fats. We were taught to be afraid of them, cut them down, eat the low-fat stuff, get your margarine and not your butter, get your Crisco, get your Olestra, eat the low-fat stuff. And the joke of it is, if you look at when the low-fat movement started and you look at obesity rates in America, they coincide directly. As soon as we vilified people about healthy fat, we started creating a problem. And I'll give you one example of how they did that. One of the chief players in this game was a guy named Ansel Keys. And Ansel Keys was doing all his investigations, and he went to one of the famous sort of blue zone areas. And he found that this island in Greece where people were living often into their hundreds. So he went and examined them, and he examined their food. And he took food samples, and he sent them back to his lab. And what he found out was that they just didn't eat saturated fat, these people. They didn't have any meat or fish, and they had no saturated fat. It was amazing. And then he published this in his famous 7-country study. And then that became the lore, and everybody became afraid of fat. What he didn't tell anybody, and didn't come out for some years, is that he took the food samples during Lent, the only 2 weeks of the year that people gave those things up. And then he lied to all of us about that. And then he made all of us afraid of fat. And then, we started eating the low-fat, fake fat, garbage fat stuff. And that caused a major explosion in obesity. In fact, right around that same time, a little bit into the 70s, Louise Light developed the food pyramid. She developed the most incredible food pyramid, and then she handed it over to the authorities who were largely funded by the food industry. And over about 10 or 15 years, they processed her pyramid before they published it. They processed it a lot like they processed the food. They flipped it upside down. They quite literally flipped it upside down. And she said, when she saw what they did, this is in the 70s, she said, if you publish this revised upside down ridiculous food pyramid, you will cause a widespread epidemic of obesity and diabetes. It's almost like she was a fortune teller. Well, guess that's exactly what happened. So then now we move to the next thing. Well, you should weigh yourself on a regular basis. If you weigh yourself, if you tend to measure things, they get better. That's true in some cases, not so much the case with weight. Tell me if any of you have gone through this process. You want to weigh yourself, and you've learned that you should weigh yourself at the same time every day. So you get up in the morning and you figure that's the best time of day. But first of all, you got to go to the bathroom, right? Get rid of the excess weight. Maybe you have a shower, clean off the dirt. Then you got to dry your hair because you don't want any extra moisture. Then you probably take off some jewelry, right? Like get the earrings off just in case. And then you go over to the scale and you walk over to it almost like it's a snake or a spider or something. And then you get there and then you step on it lightly. Has anybody here ever stepped on a scale lightly as if that's going to make a difference, right? We step on the scale lightly and then we hold our breath and then we're like, maybe I should let go of the breath because that might be heavy. And then you look down at the scale and then you see the number and the number hurts. And I want you to know something about that. That whole process is stressful, which means that you're producing cortisol, and cortisol tells your body to hold on to fat. Can you see the problem with that? It means every single day that you weigh yourself with that fear, whether the number's good or bad or not, Every single day you do that, you raise cortisol, and you and the oddness of it is you cause your fat to stay on. So we don't want to weigh ourselves. Listen, I'll tell you, weighing yourself every day is a little bit like investing in Bitcoin or the stock market and watching the price every day. That's not useful either. That's not useful. What you want to do is look at the trends over time, and there's a much better psychology about that. Okay, the next thing they did, here's the big one. Well, if you're a little overweight or you got diabetes, well, it's your own fault. You shouldn't have eaten so much, and you should have moved more, right? That's what they tell us. You should have moved more. I want you to know something. Every great lie is built on a tiny little bit of truth. And so, of course, there is some truth to that. We do need to be moving. But the challenge is that if somebody's diet isn't right yet, and especially if they're carrying a little bit of extra weight, moving more is maybe the last thing that they should be doing. But the reason it became the holy grail of weight loss is that the sugar industry, particularly the soft drink industry, realized that people were becoming concerned about calories. They're like, oh my gosh, this drink has so many calories in it. And so the soft drink industry did two things. They started developing no calorie drinks. And then they also started telling you, well, if you just go for a run, you can eat the thing. You can have that treat. You can have it because you went for a run. You played sports. And so now we started this new thing of that exercise is the path. Now, let's be clear. Exercise is definitely important, but it's not important if you are carrying a bunch of extra weight that you want to get rid of. In fact, it can be counterproductive. Intensive focused exercise causes you to raise your cortisol levels, which can slow down the weight loss process. And so that's why you see these people starving themselves, working out really hard and getting these weight plateaus. They're not understanding the internal biochemistry. So exercise can be a very valuable part of the process, but it has to be done properly. And it certainly should not be done as a focused, intense, hard thing. Look, if you know somebody's carrying 20 pounds or 30 pounds, think about that. The extra pressure they're putting on their joints and their hips and their knees and stuff. No, the first port of call in turning your health around is to change your relationship with food. Later, we can talk about exercise. Now, here's the next thing. This is the big one, guys. Fad food labels. Fad food labels. Keto, you got to go buy your keto stuff. That'll do it. Or your paleo stuff, or your organic stuff, or your natural stuff. Okay, I want to tell you something about this. The word paleo is the shortened version of Paleolithic. Paleolithic means from the past. And there's some truth to that if we look to the past, we can learn a great deal about our physiology and about our metabolism, no question about it. But once it got shortened into the word paleo, it became a brand, which is why you can now buy paleo pancakes. What? Listen, I'm not saying we should never have pancakes. I'm just saying we shouldn't lie to ourselves about it. We can get our keto pancakes and our keto cookies and paleo donuts and like these labels. Here's the deal. I saw this in the shop the other day. You guys are going to love it. It was this bag of garbage food. I mean, garbage food, but it was called organics. And I was like, what? That's insane. Then I looked closer at the label. Organics is the brand name. It's not organic at all. They're just lying. Have any of you ever felt a little lied to by the food industry? I'm curious. Has anybody ever felt a little lied to by the food industry? Like, matter of fact, if you can think of a lie that the food industry told you or a brand or something, share it with me. I love collecting food industry lies. There's a lot of them. Now, here's another big one. This is the big one, guys. Listen. Well, you should just listen to your body. No, you shouldn't, because the food industry's been lying to your body. The sugar's been lying to your body. How many of you have listened to your body and your body told you chocolate ice cream was the cure for depression? Anybody had that one? How many of you have listened to your body and your body said, but I really needed a cookie. I really, like, no, you can't listen to your body until you get your body in balance. When your body is very well hydrated and nourished and metabolically balanced, you can actually listen to your body. But if you eat, say, bread, and I'm not saying we can never eat bread, I'm just saying the reality of eating bread is that it makes you hungry. So once you eat bread at the start of your meal, there's a pretty good chance you're going to order dessert. I'm going to tell you a secret. That's why they give away bread for free at those restaurants. You would think that doesn't make sense, right? If they give away free bread, you're going to order less food. They figured it out a long time ago. People who eat the bread order dessert. Why? The bread pushed their blood sugar up and triggered more cravings, and so they end up eating more. It's really It's really insidious. So no, you can't listen to your body until you get your body into really good balance. Your body will ask you for the highest calorie, yummiest, super flavored things on a regular basis because the food industry has manipulated us. How many of you learned at some point in your life that cookies, donuts, wine, ice cream, breakfast cereal, how many of you learned that those things can anesthetize pain, that they can reduce your pain and they can help you to feel better? Yeah, like we were taught that. And so no, we can't listen to our body. And then here's another big lie, and I really want you to hear this. You should have a balanced diet. Listen, I don't know how many of you are sitting there with a set of scales on the dining room table to balance your diet, but I want you to just think about something for a minute. For our ancestors, they did have a balanced diet, but the balance was achieved over the year, not on the plate. You know, you wouldn't see, say, early humans going out and gathering and picking up a bunch of root vegetables and saying, you know what? We need some fruit with this. Let's go get that too. They ate what they ate in that moment. The idea that you need this balanced diet or the recommended daily allowance of things that are peppering all over the place, no, it's confusing to your digestive system. So yes, we need a balanced diet, but it needs to be over the course of a year. Now, each one of these things that we've been taught, fail us miserably and keep us in the diet cycle. The average person will go on 2 diets a year through their entire adult life. And by the way, I'm going to ask you guys to guess, how long on average do they stay on those diets? They go on an average of 2 diets a year through the course of their life. How often? What's the average that they stay on the diets? That's what I want to know. Let's check it out. 1 month, 2 weeks, 30 to 60 days, 10 days, 2 weeks. Here's the deal. The average is 7 days. This is according to a big study that was published in the United Kingdom. The average is 7 days. So the average person is going on 2 diets a year and sticking with it for 7 days. And then the rest of the year, they're just letting it go and relapsing from the damage the diet did to them in the first place. So what we really want to do is change something entirely in the way we look at stuff. And that's what I had to do. I had fallen into all these traps. And when I was 21 years old, 1991, I was overweight. I was sick. I had horrible acne. I had terrible throat and sinus infections, horrible digestive problems. I didn't sleep. It was bad. It was really bad. And my parents, caring a great deal about me, sent me to doctors. And I went to go to the doctors. And can anybody tell me what the doctors decided for me? What did the doctors prescribe? How did they suggest that I turn this around? Did anybody have a guess what they told me? Yes, Angie, they told me medicine. There were pills. And there were injections even, and there were inhalants that I could use. I mean, there was a variety of these medical treatments that I could do, including they finally prescribed me with a surgery that would fix it all. But here's the deal. Every one of those medications had side effects, and none of them worked. Sometimes they'd give me a temporary respite from some pain that I was in that moment. I couldn't breathe through my sinuses. I could inhale some noxious bunch of chemicals and my sinuses would open for a little while, but then they'd close again. And now I'm addicted to this stuff going in my nose. So it wasn't working. And suddenly I found myself at a business seminar. I suddenly find myself at a seminar with Tony Robbins. And on the last day of the seminar, Tony Robbins started talking about food. I'm 21 years old. I'm like, I think I'm going to leave. I'm not here for this food thing. I'm here for the business stuff. I'm here to learn how to grow my business. Why are we talking about food? Well, I'll tell you right now. He was so right about this. The number one secret to being phenomenally successful professionally is being healthy. It's the number one secret. There's no question about it. When you're healthy, you make better decisions. You have more energy. You can work longer. You miss less days sick. Plus, if you've created phenomenal success, you get to live long enough to enjoy it. It's the number one secret. And so I paid attention to what he was saying. And I went home and I thought a lot about it. And I started doing my own research. I started looking into some things. And I decided to try an experiment. And in that experiment, I added in some things that I believed were good for me. And I took out some things that I believe might not be so good for me. And I used willpower to do it. So it was really hard, really hard. But I was so curious that I stuck with it for 30 days. And 30 days later, I'd lost 35 pounds. My face had completely cleared up. All the acne was gone. I was breathing in through my sinuses for the first time in years and years. I was off all the medications. And the digestive problems that I had that were so bad were gone. My life was completely transformed. And that set me on a mission. And the mission was to understand why none of my doctors had told me about this. So I'm going to tell you a question that I asked my doctor, and you guys are going to answer it. Here's the question I asked my doctor. You answer it. I said to my doctor, as he was trying to still convince me to have the surgery, and I want you to think about this, guys. I walked into his office. His staff was there. They knew me. I was there all the time. I had lost 35 pounds. My acne was gone. I looked completely different, and not one of them said a thing. Not one of them said, wow, you look great. Not one of them asked how I did it. All they cared about was locking me into the surgery. You're still ready for the surgery? No, I'm not. I don't need the surgery. And so as we had this conversation, here's the deal. I asked the doctor, how long did you go to medical school? 6 years. And I said, and this is the question I want you guys to answer. I said, in 6 years of medical school, how much time, how many semesters, how much time was spent studying nutrition? Can you guys tell me the answer? How much time? Here you go. 1 semester, 1 day, 0, none, 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 2 weeks, none, none. Here's the answer. The answer is none. Not any, nothing, nada. And I have now asked that question of doctors all over the world, and the answer is always none, unless there's 2 exceptions, unless they're from, I think it's Romania, where they do require a 6-month prerequisite nutrition course, or they took an elective course. If they took an elective course, then they studied. Otherwise, they didn't. And when my doctor said this to me, here's how I felt. I felt like I was on a passenger plane, and I just found out that the pilots didn't study landing. What do you mean you're a doctor and you didn't study food? That's insane. That is absolutely insane. How could you not? I mean, okay, I get a little angry about this, but it's huge. So that's what got me going into my research. I realized that if they weren't going to learn how to land the plane, I'd better learn how to land the plane. And so I studied 3 things. And those 3 things completely transformed my life and now the lives of hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And here are those 3 things. The first one is what you would call nutritional anthropology. And I want to explain the background of that in a second. The second one is evolutionary biology, very closely related to the first one. And the third one was key, and that was behavioral psychology. Behavioral psychology. So let's go through those. You can learn a great deal from nutritional anthropology, and that's where Paleolithic or paleo diet kind of has its heart from. So I'll ask you guys a question. Imagine that you suddenly inherit or you're gifted an exotic pet, a pet you've never really seen before, an exotic pet. And you have 2 ways to figure out how to raise your pet, how to treat it, how to keep it healthy. The one way is you could go to the Harvard research papers, you could go to the PubMed research papers, and you could read all the research papers written by pet food manufacturers. You could read all the research papers, or you could watch the Discovery Channel for 2 hours and watch a special on that animal. Which way do you think is going to give you better information about that animal? I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. Well, what if we apply that same logic to us? Well, we can. We can apply that same logic to us by looking at our archaeological history, our anthropological contemporaries, that is to say, modern hunter-gatherers today, and our closest living relatives in the animal kingdom, chimpanzees and bonobos. And you know what's interesting? They all basically ate the same stuff. So there's some really interesting information to be gained from nutritional anthropology. Then the next thing we can take a look at is evolutionary biology, and that is understanding how we evolved our bodies and our metabolisms. You remember where we started this session? One of the reasons we have this problem is that we evolved metabolisms that are very good at gaining weight because food was so scarce. So here you've got this perfect machine, so good at gaining weight when there's not a lot of food around. Imagine how good it is at gaining weight when there is a lot of food around, right? Completely different problem. And so once we get into understanding the metabolic function of the body, everything begins to change. So can you guys tell me, there are 3 fuel sources. There are 3 fuels that humans can burn. Can you guys tell me what they are? There are 3 things that we can burn for energy. 3 things. What are they? Let's see here in the chat. Yep, we can burn fat. We can burn carbs. We can burn sugar. We can burn fat. There, somebody got it. Protein. We can burn protein. And so that's where we begin to understand that our ancestors lived with seasonal rotation. They lived in a season that triggered weight gain, the season of autumn. If you didn't gain weight in autumn, you didn't make it through the winter. So we're very good at putting on weight when we're in autumn. And one of the ways that we know that we're in autumn is when there's lots of carbohydrate foods available, fruits and vegetables and root vegetables, particularly, like really great. When you're eating those things, you get increased cravings. Has anybody here ever noticed that when you eat carbs, it makes you hungry? Have you ever noticed that? Like I said, if you eat bread at the beginning of the meal, you're probably going to have the dessert, right? Well, again, that might look like a flaw in human design. It's not. It's not a flaw in human design. It's a perfect human design when there's not a lot of food available. The problem is when you suddenly have full availability of food, then it starts becoming a real problem. So we really want to understand that these seasons trigger metabolic modes in us. And so when you're in autumn, you're going to gain weight to get you through the next winter. Then you're going to go into winter. Well, what's winter? Winter is calorie deprivation or fasting. And that's a really, really valuable thing. Now, not everybody wants to fast, and they don't have to, but I'll tell you, when you fast, something interesting happens. You burn protein, not muscle, no, maybe a little, but what you really burn is all the old sick, diseased proteins and things that are in your body. You burn them all out and you cleanse them. It's one of the most incredible cleansing things. Then you move into spring, and you're eating foods that trigger fat burning. These seasonal cycles are incredibly important to your health, to your mental health, and of course, to your body composition. So when we really begin to understand those, everything changes. It becomes so much more effective when you begin to understand those. So then we go to the third thing that I studied, and this is the big one, guys. I really want you to hear this. I can tell you what to do. Look, eat more of the biologically evolved things that humans are supposed to eat. Seasonally available fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds. And if you're not a vegetarian or vegan, seasonally available meats, fish, eggs, and poultry. If you focus on eating those things, things are going to get better. And if you get rid of some of the other stuff, eat less ice cream, pizza, chocolate, all those other things, things will get better. But I think we've proven at this point that relying on willpower to make changes like that doesn't really work. Or if it works for a short period of time, and then it triggers a relapse. And that often makes things worse. And then, what I want to suggest is that's why I had to do a deep dive into behavioral psychology, understanding what triggers our food beliefs. How many of you, deep moment of honesty here, guys, how many of you have found yourself buying something, opening it, putting it in your mouth, and there's a voice in the back of your head going, don't do it, but you're doing it anyway? Has anybody had that? Like there's a voice that's saying, please don't, I don't want you to do it, but it just surrenders. And then you end up having that thing. And then how many of you have had this version? You've now eaten that thing, and now you have another voice in your head going, you are so weak. You're so weak. I can't believe you give into this every time. And here's the dangerous thing is every single time you run that shame guilt cycle, you damage your self-esteem a little bit, and you make it even harder to resist the food the next time. How about this one? How many of you have found you're doing quite well, but there's one thing that can trigger you? One thing, check it out. Here it goes. And it's different for everybody. There's a few different ones anyway. Who has this one? I'm doing really well, but then somebody brought free food. I was doing so well, but they brought free donuts. I mean, they're free. They're free. Anybody struggled with that one a little bit? Well, let me tell you why. In nature, food was rare. You're walking along, there's berries there. They're free. That's the instinct, right? Like, oh my gosh, it's there. I got to eat it. Oh, okay, wait. One of the really important ones is, I'm just going to let you in on a little secret. It's possible that you have a low-grade multiple personality disorder. Hold on. I'm going to try and diagnose you right now, and then we're going to see how many of you might have a low-grade multiple personality disorder. Check it out. You're doing quite well. You've been on your diet. You're doing quite well. Then a favorite food shows up, and maybe a friend made it with love. And so, you have one voice that goes, oh, look, they made tiramisu and they made it for me. The other voice goes, no, we're on a diet. We made a deal about this and we were on a diet. Yeah, but we've been doing so well. I mean, we've really done really well. I mean, the numbers show it. We've done so well. We deserve a reward. Look, this is what happens every time we try and, we just have a reward. Yeah, but how about just one taste? Has anybody had a conversation like that? Anybody ever had a conversation like that? Then I diagnose you as having a low-grade multiple personality disorder when it comes to food. What you might think is that the goal is to get the good voice to win and the bad voice to lose. That is not the goal. That's the willpower version. That never works. You can suppress the bad voice for a while. You can do it. You can do it on a diet for apparently an average of about 7 days. But something's going to happen on day 7, day 8, day 9, where that food devil's going to win. The food devil's going to just happen to say the right thing. It's just going to go, God, you had such a hard day. You deserve it. And the food devil has been programmed by the food industry. It's going to use food industry slogans like, you deserve a break today. You deserve some happiness. You don't need to be alone. And it's going to give you all this stuff. And then suddenly you're going to give in. And by the way, is it ever just one bite? Is it ever? Is it ever just the one bite that the food devil told you about? Never. That's the drug dealer food devil. Come on, first one's free, just the one bite. Guys, it's not about trying to get the devil to lose and the angel to win. It's about getting them on the same side. And I'm going to give you a great example of that. I was driving along in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where I largely grew up. Now, you can imagine that I don't eat at Tim Hortons. And for those of you that are not in Canada, Tim Hortons is Krispy Kremes in America. It's a donut coffee shop somewhere else. It's the big coffee donut chain of Canada. And you can imagine that I don't do that pretty much since 1991. And I've driven past many Tim Hortonses and many Krispy Kremes and Dunkin' Donuts. They're not tempting to me in the least. I don't even see them. But I was back in Halifax about 8 years ago. And I was driving along and I drove past the Tim Hortons, not just any Tim Hortons, but the one that I grew up with, the one that we went to after the hockey games, the one that we went to in the wintertime after the snow was falling. And it was like the place we went for celebrations and stuff. And I stop and I'm driving past and the red light happens and I'm sitting at the red light and there's the Tim Hortons. I don't even notice it, but my food devil does. And the food devil goes, hey, Eric, look, it's our old Tim Hortons. And I'm in the car and I literally bust out laughing. Like I just started laughing that my food devil would even say that to me. Like it was hilarious. But then you know what happened? My food devil started laughing. It didn't try to get me to go in there. It just was an old habit and it was triggered and done. I never once had to convince myself not to go in. There was no part of me that wanted to go. What I want you to know is that by understanding behavioral psychology, we can change your relationship with food so that you don't have to rely on willpower, or that you only have to use willpower in tiny little moments for a second, but you don't have to use that white knuckling. Look, here's what I mean by the white knuckling willpower. How many of you have done this? You've decided it's time to lose some weight. It's time to turn things around. You want to sleep better. You want to improve your sex drive. You want to be healthier. You don't want to be sick so often. People around are getting sick. You don't want to do that. You're going to eat better. You go on a diet, and then you know the rules of your diet, and you're sticking to the rules of your diet. But sticking to the rules of your diet is a constant battle through the day. How many of you had that? You're like white knuckling it through. Somebody brings donut. I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to have it. And then, you're sitting with your friends and a bunch of them order dessert. No, I'm not going to order dessert. And then your friends, by the way, some of you have seen the movie The Matrix, I bet. And you remember in The Matrix how the agents could take over the other people, like they could just take them over? Well, I want you to know that the food industry that is not on your side. The food industry is on the side of profits for their shareholders. And to get those profits, they're going to get you to eat as much as they can get you to eat. They'll put addictive substances in there. They'll take out the nutrition so you stay hungry. They'll use manipulative marketing campaigns. The food industry is not on your side. And sometimes they will send agents to take over your friends. They will. How many of you ever had a friend going, oh, come on, I made it with love. I mean, you got to live. You got to live a little. Has anybody had one of your friends being taken over by an agent from the Matrix? It's like, why are you trying to get me to eat this? I'm trying to save my life here. And so behavioral psychology, food psychology that we've developed really helps to neutralize all of those things for you so that you never have to rely on willpower to make changes again. That when you walk into a room with even your most favorite tempted food, You're not even interested. You're not even tempted. And by the way, this doesn't mean you never have them again. It doesn't mean that at all. I'll tell you, a couple of years ago, my girlfriend Kirsty and I were going through Dubai, and I noticed that they've got Cinnabon in Dubai. Now, Cinnabon, there's nothing redeeming about Cinnabon from a nutritional perspective. I think we can agree this is not something we should be eating on any kind of regular basis. But we're on our holidays and what have you, and we see the Cinnabon, and I go, oh, look, they've got Cinnabon here in Dubai. That's amazing. And she's like, what's Cinnabon? And I go, oh, well, it's this like, sinfully moist cinnamon, and she goes, I love cinnamon buns. Should we have one? I'm like, well, I haven't had one in 20 some odd years. But you know what? We're like, what the hell? Let's go do an experiment. We split one. It was not nearly as good as we thought it was going to be. We never had one again. Food freedom is what I want for you. Let me tell you what food freedom is not. Food freedom is not you eating things that you wish you wouldn't eat. Can you guys tell me in the chat, what are some of the things that you eat or eat too much of that you wish you wouldn't eat? That little voice is like, don't do it. Please stop. Don't finish it. What are some of the foods that, you don't want to give it up forever, but you wish you didn't eat as much of it in the void? There you go, right? Food freedom is where those things don't own you anymore. They don't control you. It also means you can have them if you want, but it means that you don't eat them because the food industry wants you to eat them. And that's a very different thing, right? Like look at this: rice, wine, candy, fast food, chocolate, like Snickers, chips, everything, Little Debbie Swiss rolls, brioche. Like, guys, those foods are designed to take your freedom away. They're basically a form of crack cocaine designed to take your freedom away. And I'm not saying you can never have them. Of course you can. But what I'm saying is that if you're eating them when you wish you wouldn't, you're not free. I hope you hear me. If you're eating things that you either wish you wouldn't or regret later, you are not free. They own you. They've got you. And you need to break free. Another type of freedom is the freedom to eat what you do want to eat on occasion, to be able to have those things that you want to have. And that's what I want for you. I want this for you. Who wants this? I'm describing it for you. Who wants this? The ability to eat what you want, when you want, as much as you want, alongside the ability to not eat what you don't want and never have regret about that again. Who wants that? And by the way, if any of you have done WildFit before, speak up to that, or at least speak up to your experience of that, what it's like to walk into a place and not be tempted. I'm going to share one last story with you, and then I'm going to just highlight some points that you can use to really create some transformation in your life. Years ago, I was sitting with a mutual friend of mine and Vishen's, a guy named Jeffrey Perlman. He's one of the founders of Zumba and the chief marketing officer. And he said to me, Eric, what's the feeling that WildFit gives people? Like Coca-Cola alleges to give people happiness. I think it gives them diabetes, but they say it gives them happiness. And lots of food companies promise an emotional state. Harley Davidson's promise you a feeling of rebellion, right? So he said to me, what is the feeling that WildFit creates for people? And I said, freedom. And he goes, wow, that's a big word. That's a really big word. Like, that's $1 billion word. Can you really? And I go, yeah, that's what it is. And he goes, I don't know. We're going to have to dig in. And is it really about freedom? I said, totally is. The next morning, he and I are sitting having breakfast. Now, we're in a resort, one of these 5-star resorts with big buffet and what have you. We're sitting at the table, and a guy walks out of the buffet and walks up, and he recognizes me. And that happens quite a lot, thanks to Mind Valley, YouTube and what have you. People walk up to me in airports and introduce themselves to me. And this guy does the same thing. He walks up and he goes, you're Eric Edmeades. Now, I don't know why people need to tell me who I am. It's like they think I need reminding. You're Eric Edmeades. Yes, I am. Thank you very much for that. And he goes, I so want to thank you. And I'm like, you're welcome. What for? And he says, I want to thank you for my freedom. And I looked at Jeffrey because I was pretty sure Jeffrey must have put him up to it. Like, it was a bit of a gag, right? The look on Jeffrey's face told me it was not a gag. He was shocked. We just had this conversation the night before. And this guy walks up and he goes, I want to thank you for my freedom. But Jeffrey wants to isolate. What exactly does freedom mean? And he says to the guy, what exactly do you mean by freedom? What exactly do you mean? And he goes, I'll tell you exactly what I mean. I just walked through the buffet and I got my food, and he had good food. And he goes, and I realized it was the first time I've been at an all-you-can-eat buffet that didn't have donuts and muffins and cookies and shit. They just didn't have it. And he goes, they must have had it. So he said, I went back in and they were there, but I hadn't even seen them. That's food freedom. You see, what most people have is they see them and eat them. What some people have is they see them and they do everything they can to not look, don't look, and they try to walk past them and they feel the gravitational pull. It's like I'm being pulled to the sugar, diabetes, obesity table right now. But what about being able to just walk through it and not even catch your attention? That's food freedom. So what I want to remind you is some really powerful points that can change some things for you. The first thing is this. Our history is the key. Human beings have been on this planet as human beings for 300,000 years. And we know that our diet has largely been made up of seasonally available fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds. And if you're not a vegetarian or vegan, meats, fish, eggs, and that sort of stuff. We know that. And so if you focus on those things, instead of focusing on eliminating stuff, you're going to make a big shift in your diet. Then the next thing we want to take a look at is not relying on willpower. And that is to seek out the kind of coaching that can support you in reframing your neurology so that you can have genuine, proper, effective food freedom. And the last thing I want to tell you, and very briefly, is you have 6 primary reasons for eating. There are 6 types of hungers you have for eating. One of them, funny enough, is thirst, because humans used to get so much of the water that we needed from the food that we ate. And so if you let yourself get a little dehydrated, you're going to want to eat a bag of chips. Has anybody had that? So one of the most powerful things you can do is make sure you're pre-hydrated. You also want to make sure that you have a balanced metabolism, avoid low blood sugar, avoid getting hungry or hangry or fungry, right? Like having a balanced metabolism, a very key part of what we do for people is making sure they've got a balanced metabolism so they don't have the mood swings that result in bad food decisions. You want to take a look at your emotional hunger. The next time you're feeling lonely and you think chocolate is the answer, I'm going to suggest there's proof that it isn't, because you're eating the chocolate and you're still alone. No. If you look at each of these reasons, variety, we do need a sense of variety, but we get the variety by looking at junk food. We want to become masterful at creating yummy variety. I want you to know that having an empty stomach is not a form of hunger. It's simply that your stomach is empty. And that's actually a good thing from time to time. That's why it's a good idea to go to bed on an empty stomach. There's only one type of hunger that's real, and that's nutritional hunger. And unfortunately, the vast majority of people living in modern civilization today are hungry for nutrients and overfed stimulants. And that is leading to the incredible diabetes, obesity, cancer, heart disease epidemic that we see all over the planet today. Focus on bringing in the good stuff, and then you'll have less cravings for the bad stuff. I really want you to get that the food industry is not on your side. The diet industry has been giving you absolutely the wrong information for a long time. The body that you want and deserve is absolutely available to you. And so I love sharing these messages with people and getting this out to everybody. I know there's been a lot of questions, and you guys, Mindval, you can tell me, when are we going to do questions and answers, or what's the segue at this point? All right. I'm going to just jump in and answer some of the questions that I've seen here until you guys jump in otherwise. This is a question that Ken sent us. He says, hey, I'm 76 years old. Does this work at any age? Yeah, it does. We've had clients, the youngest clients we've had have been in their early teens, 12, 13, 14 years old. And we've had clients well into their 80s and 90s. And the principles that we're using are effective no matter where you are on that spectrum. Hey, Vishen, good to have you back.
Yeah. Hi, Eric. Okay. So what we'd like to do, guys, is we're going to give you a ton of information right now. We can kind of anticipate the questions because we've done this. We've been doing this since 2016. Okay. So what we want to share with you right now is some of the amazing case studies from our fellow community members, Mindvalley members that have done this and have seen incredible results. So here goes. So Eric spoke a lot about freedom. That freedom manifested itself in many different ways. I'm going to take you through close to 50 different case studies, rapid fire, because there are so many stories we have of WildFit. If you go to stories.mindvalley.com, you'll see we have 702 case studies submitted from people all around the world who have done WildFit. But I want to just very rapidly go through a couple so you guys see how powerful this is. Pushpa Nair from India lost 23 kilograms. Wayne Raddick, he was amazed at how many foods that used to control his life that he no longer needed. Look at that transformation. That's 27 pounds lost in 90 days. This man His asthma disappeared, chest pain disappeared, reflux gone, low energy gone, joint pain gone, difficulty breathing gone, and lost 18 pounds. You see, it's not just about weight loss. This lady, Sarah May, lost 25 pounds. Her husband lost 45 pounds, and they felt stronger and more energetic than before. This lady lost 30 pounds, and her gut, which she had gut issues, was finally able to start healing again. This woman released 22 pounds, 14 inches overall. And if you read the case study, she said pain and inflammation went away within 1 week of eliminating dairy, processed food, sugar. 1 week. So much of the ailments that you believe you have, in your body, have to do with the foods you eat. And many of us don't realize just how powerful the truth is that you are what you eat. Okay, this person lost 19 kilograms, a lot of inches. Look at that body transformation, right? That's huge. This one, 88 kilograms lost. This is unreal. 88 kilograms, lost 18 inches. That's 9 pounds, 18 inches overall. This person, 75 pounds. And 15 days after WildFit, so now we're looking at day 105, still releasing more weight. This person lost 58 centimeters across like all her limbs, all her waistline, 18 kilograms. And notice what she says, it's pretty effortless. Why? Why is it effortless, Eric?
It's effortless because we are moving into food psychology instead of that white knuckle willpower thing.
Right.
As a very quick example, at one point when most people were a kid, they fell down, they skinned their knee, and somebody gave them a chocolate chip cookie or something, and they linked it up as a form of pain relief. And so in the future, when they're feeling pain, emotional pain or physical pain, they tend to reach for that food. One of the key processes that we go through is breaking those neuroconnections so that you have freedom.
Right. So let's look at the others. 42 pounds. Look at how much just her facial features changed. 3 months, I released 22 pounds, 18 inches, and brought my body fat from 23.7 to 19.7. That's in 3 months. Lost 20 pounds, 22 inches. I feel 20 years younger, more energy. I sleep better. How many of you here have issues with sleep? Okay, could what you eat be affecting your sleep? Lost 14 pounds. And she said, my body began to heal itself. Lost 12 pounds, 2 off my bust, waist, and hips, 1.5 inches off my knees. Lost 12 pounds, 14 inches over the course of 90 days, released 7 kilograms, became conscious of her food decisions, now has the tools to avoid emotional eating. Look at how amazing she looks. Lost over 40 pounds, and better yet, tons of thoughts and habits that no longer serve me. Lost 20 pounds and got off all diabetes medication. Lost 29 pounds. The edema in my feet and legs is almost completely gone, and my blood sugar dropped by over 50 points. Lost 70 pounds together. I love it when couples do WildFit, right? It's so much fun. So when I did WildFit, I was married to Christina, and I went from 22% body fat to 14% body fat, and she was skeptical. But in that same 3 months, she lost 2 kilograms just because when I was eating healthy, it was influencing food choices across my entire family. I wasn't, suggesting the second glass of wine as we watched a movie that night, or eating as much Haagen-Dazs as I normally do. Today, my son, he's 16 years old. He just has no cravings for junk food. He is so super fit. He has a six-pack. And I'm so proud of my kids. And that's because as a family, we just changed the way we eat. This lady lost 20 pounds, learned a lot, energy, focus, self-love, all up, lost 20 pounds, and her skin completely cleared. By the way, this is another really interesting thing, okay? When you start doing WildFit and you take out foods that don't serve you, many people see a clearing in the skin. There was a study done on milk, and it found that milk is basically neutral food. Doesn't do much good, doesn't do much bad for your body, but in 24% of the population, milk causes acne. And so a lot of people automatically see, just by eliminating certain foods that no longer serve them, huge skin improvements. This guy lost 32 pounds, cravings under control. This guy brought his look at that transformation, fat percentage from 44% to 28%. This guy lost 10.5 stone to 9 stone. I have no idea what stone is. I'm a kilograms guy, but I'm guessing this is pretty damn impressive. This guy lost 28.6 pounds. And he says, like the program says, take pictures. It will put things in perspective. Take pictures every month if you're doing WildFit. You want to keep those pictures. You're going to be so proud of those pictures. Now, the cool thing about this is, Eric, what's the stick rate to this? Because with traditional diets, people gain back the weight. What is it with WildFit?
There are a bunch of different measures. We have an 85% completion rate where people actually like complete the program, which is an order of magnitude or 10 times more effective than in any other program like that. When people have been surveyed after the fact, like Learning Strategies and Paul Shealy's team, they went and did a big campaign with us and surveyed people. I think it was 2 years afterward, and about 80% of those people reported that they were still on track. Now, of course, that does mean every now and again, there are people like I have a great example. I had a guy call me once and tell me that he felt like he was a real failure, like he'd done the program and he lost 100 pounds. And then he said, well, I said, why do you regard yourself a failure? And he goes, because I didn't lose 100 more, and he had 100 more to lose. But after a year, he had maintained that 100-pound weight loss, which is something he'd never been able to achieve before. And I'm not going to suggest nobody will ever relapse or regain their weight, but I'll tell you, when in the rare times when that does happen, they know exactly why it happened and they know exactly how to reverse it because they didn't do it from willpower in the first place. It gives you control, and that's the key thing.
Amazing. Thank you, Eric. And yeah, so I'm still at the same body fat percentage, 14%. That was what I hit when I did WildFit, and I've just stayed there because I found that the mental training really stays with you. Like I no longer crave. I cannot even take coffee with milk anymore. I just like my coffee black, which is the healthy way, right? Your preferences just change. And emotional eating, I was really hooked on ice cream and cookies. That's gone. So we'll continue with the case studies. You can see so many amazing stories over here, and these go on and on and on. People from all around the world, people who are seeing not just their weight change, but their health transform. And so you live your absolute fullest. You find that you've never felt this healthy. You transform your eating habits and you transform your body. And it happens in 90 days. Now, Eric, many people may have a disbelief that this happens so fast. How would you convince them that this can happen in 90 days? By the way, all the case studies we showed is 90 days.
It's an interesting thing. One of the reasons that we do need to convince people is that the diet industry has failed people for so very long that they've lost faith. They've lost faith. And the worst thing is that they've lost faith because, well, here's a principle I want to share with you. People don't fail diets. Diets fail people. It was built on one case study, and many diets have done that. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of these stories of WildFit all over. You can find, but the hashtag WildFitWorks, they're all over the place. Your collection at Mindvalley of 700 plus stories. And you have to remember, a lot of people are not willing to share before after pictures. For every one person who shared their story here, there are many, many more that, they don't really feel like sharing that. It is an absolutely solid thing that this works. And the biggest reason is that we're using the body's design to create the results. In fact, here's another version of it. You can have two people go through this program. One of them is underweight and the other one is overweight. What will happen is they will both begin to right size. And that's a very important thing about that. WildFit was never designed for weight loss. It was designed for changing your relationship with food. Now, the result of that is when you eat nutritionally well and you eat seasonally balanced, when you follow those structures, then your body right sizes. And so I mean, I'm hoping that the stories are convincing to people because it works. But one more thing, guys, I'm going to say this. When I started WildFit, it was a hobby. Truly, it was a hobby. I was teaching business, entrepreneurship all over the world. And my clients always ask me, how I had all this energy and I don't do jet lag and I don't get sick and what's going on with that. And so I started teaching them some principles, never about weight. All I was teaching them was nutritional anthropology, behavioral psychology. And then we started getting the stories. And no kidding, it was a hobby business. I didn't even have a website. And then one day, a mutual friend of Vishen and mine called me up. His name's Paul Shealy. Called me up and he goes, "Hey, where's your website? I want to send my clients to you." And I'm like, "I don't have a website. It's a hobby. I just give it to my business clients." He goes, "You'd better put up a website. I'm about to tell my clients about you." At that point, this was a little coaching business, a little hobby, 150 clients a year. And when Paul told his network about us, 200 people signed up in a day, in a week, in about 3 days or something like it. It was completely transformative. And then that just kept happening. And so what I'm kind of getting at here is that the growth that we've had has been unbelievably organic. Even you right now watching this webinar, you're watching it because Vishen went through the program, having seen the results in a bunch of our friends, and then is sharing the results with you.
Yeah,
So I'm hoping that that's all fairly convincing.
Yeah, after I did the program, I put 100 of my employees and their spouses on it, and 100 people, employees and spouses, saw dramatic transformation. The record was wild. The record was a guy from Malaysia who lost 90 pounds. He lost 90 pounds, and it was just unbelievable. Okay, so you can tons of stories. You guys get the idea. Now, what do you learn? It's a 90-day program with WildFit. Part 1 is discovering what your body truly needs. Okay, so we're going to go super fast on this one because we've covered so much. Part 2 is allowing your natural human diet to take over. Part 3 is releasing the weight rapidly and keeping it off. Now, I do want to state one thing, right? Eric, I remember you were telling me this when I was doing WildFit. You said, Vishen, please make your employees understand that when they go through week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they may not see any changes. The changes typically happen week 7 or 8 onwards. So I went through the first 1.5 months. I'm like, I'm wasting my time. Nothing is happening. When I got to week 7, I started losing a kilogram a week. It was nuts. I felt like I was melting. Every week, I couldn't fit into my pants, and I had to make an extra hole in my belt. I bought a belt puncher. Eric, explain why that happens so people understand that it turns on.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's really very, very important. There's an old expression that if you want to get different results, you have to try different methods. Or another way of putting that is one definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. And I would argue that largely that's what the diet industry has done. They've built an industry predicated on torturing yourself with willpower, counting your calories, reducing your food, running on the treadmill, all this kind of stuff. And what we've done is so entirely different. The first 2 weeks of WildFit are entirely about psychology, about examining your relationship with food and creating for you food consciousness. So, for example, we'll talk a lot about the low-grade multiple personality disorder that people have about food, why you have these different dialogues, and how to train them to be on your side. You'll also learn something about what we call the food timeline, and that is the genuine experience of food. And I'll give you a clue to that. If you've had a really rough day, and this is a very important distinction. If you've had a really rough day and you're in your car headed home or you're walking or whatever, and you suddenly think to yourself, oh, I've got ice cream in the fridge, you immediately start to feel better. And that's proof that it wasn't the food that made you feel better. It was the rebellion. And when you begin to understand these emotional linkages to food, you begin to buy yourself freedom. And here's one more. I really want you to hear me about this. Your instincts are designed to remember emotional significance. So if you're walking through a forest 20,000 years ago and you stumble upon fruit trees and you eat a bunch of the fruit, you're going to get a bunch of dopamine. And so your body is going to remember where those fruit trees were so that you can get them again in the future. Equally, if you've just had some road rage in the car or you've had a bad day at work and now you decide to have a ice cream or whatever it is, a wine or whatever your crutch food might be from time to time, your body will get that dopamine rush. It'll go, holy cow, what magic is this? And how did I create it? And then it will remember you created it by having a bad day or by having a road rage incident or by snapping at somebody you love. And so that becomes a strategy to get to the food. So no kidding, it becomes a horrible cycle where your body will trigger bad moods and bad days to get to the junk food, which will make you feel bad, which will continue the cycle.
Okay, now when you join WildFit, these are some of the bonuses that you get. Okay, so we started experimenting with how can we get as many people as possible through the finishing line, so it's as easy. And one of the things is we make it a group challenge. So everyone's going to be connected in a Facebook group. There are facilitators there. And as people start sharing their stories, even recipes, it's really, really, really amazing because of the community that forms. You'll also get this guide. This is a guide which will help you bring some of the lessons you're learning to your family, because many of us have children, we have spouses, and we want them to be able to benefit from this as well. Now, there are 2 options for you to take WildFit. You can take the WildFit program standalone. This is where you go at your own pace. It's 13 weeks. Remember, 3 months, 90 days. It's not 12 weeks, it's 13 weeks, okay, if you add it up. So it's a 13-week program, and this is available on Mindvalley Home, and it's available in the Mindvalley app. You can also take the WildFit group coaching. And the thing about this one is that Eric is there with you. So you're going through it as a group, and Eric is there, and he's coming on. Eric, how many coaching calls are you on?
We promise that I'll be on a minimum of 4 of the calls, but I always over deliver on that.
Yeah. And then when you're not on the coaching call, we have facilitators, right?
Yep.
QA support calls, certified coaches. So if you need help, there's help. Okay. So this is the group coaching, and this is 1497. Now, some of you may be thinking 1497, that's pretty expensive. Well, expensive compared to what? The average American spends $3,500 on sickness, just healing sickness every single year, right? And this is the average American. Now, and you're spending that every year, and that number goes up as you get older. But what if you can actually be healthier? You saw all of the case studies, and there were these ancillary benefits, right? From the guy who was limping and his limp disappeared to the person whose diabetes disappeared. You saw that. So you will end up saving in medical bills and also saving in the wasteful money you spend on junk food. All right, now, we mentioned the live calls. You'll get live calls with Eric. So this is what it looks like. The welcome call is on August 5th. So we want to all start together. This is coming up soon. There are 19 live calls, and these live calls are optional. But what we found is that people love showing up for these calls. They stay motivated. They share their success stories. They share tips and tricks with each other, and facilitators are there. And it just creates this feeling of camaraderie. We found that when we go through this as a class, as a group, people have a much easier time and they enjoy it more. Okay, now we also have a Facebook group, a Telegram group. There are tons of ways to stay engaged, to stay motivated. We figured all of this out. And about Eric. Eric is so good at what he does that in 2018, the Canadian Senate awarded Eric a medal for his dedication to his mission to improve the quality of people's lives. He's been voted one of the top 25 most influential leaders in personal growth and achievement. And many Mindvalley authors actually have used WildFit. You guys might recommend notice Ken Honda. He teaches money EQ on Mindvalley. Ken Honda lost 20 pounds. Dame Marie Diamond, one of Europe's greatest spiritual teachers, she lost 8 kilograms on WildFit and got rid of her allergies. Paul Sheely, he's the founder of Learning Strategies, brilliant man. Look at the difference in his face. His team had to change all his pictures on the website when he was showing up for Zoom calls because he no longer looked the same. And this was in 3 months. Now, you can decide which path you feel is better for you. 899 for an incredible change in your health, in your food intake, and a change that lasts a long time. Or you can go 1497, weekly group coaching. Okay, I'll give you a moment to decide what you think is better for you. I'll just pause for 30 seconds. Eric, why would you say the weekly group coaching is better for people?
You know, there's a lot of good reasons. One is the community and the community aspect and tribe, being connected with people. One day you're having a low day and somebody lifts you up, and one day you're having a high day and you're lifting somebody else up. But the coaching calls in particular are really, really valuable. And one of the reasons is that the hypnosis that many of us are under relative to the food industry, like, you know, we've connected this emotion with this food or this holiday with this food. Those connections often require a little bit of a deep dive to break. And so one of the most valuable things that happens on those coaching calls is the one-on-one coaching. And it's funny, you know, very often the people that get the greatest benefit from that are just simply by watching. You know, somebody goes, well, I'm having a problem with this food. And then the coach dives in and looks at potential childhood relationships there or current emotional relationships there and helps them deframe it. And everybody gets the benefit of watching that. And so those coaching calls are unbelievably valuable. We've definitely seen a marked increase in success rates with people do it supplemented by coaching calls rather than doing it in a more self-study way.
Yeah. And my God, did you guys just see that case study that Sarah just posted? Sarah, you guys will see this in the chat. She says, I feel guilty not to share. I helped my husband get rid of all his medications, 10 different medications, in total 15 pills every day. He lost 14 inches on the belly and 1 inch on the neck through WildFit in 2019. He's a quadriplegic, cannot move neither his hands or his legs. He got the results slowly. Anyway, WildFit truly works. Amazing. Amazing. This is really cool. If any of you have done WildFit before and you're here to celebrate Eric, to see what's new, please post it, share your life-changing story in the chat, because you could possibly help influence someone else's life. So that's really important. Okay, now, have you guys decided? Well, here's what we have for you. The good news is you don't have to decide. What we're going to do is collapse both. So what this means is that we are going to open the doors to food freedom for everyone. If you get the 899 program, we'll give you the more expensive program free. Okay, so you don't have to pay 1497. We're going to collapse everything and just give you a buy one get both offer. So 899 is what you get, is all it is to join the WildFit Quest and group coaching. Okay, so that's just under $900, and it's about $300 a month. But think about the lifetime of change that you get from that. If I ask myself, what was WildFit worth to me? At least $1 million. At least, and that is at minimum, potentially more, because I look younger now than I did when I was 40 years old, and I'm now 48 and a half. I'm 1.5 years away from 50. But WildFit completely changed so much about myself, including I was losing my hair. My hair stopped falling out, and that was one of the ancillary side effects I got. And so it's probably added so many years to my life. And when I found that my body was healthier, I just started continuing to eat healthy. I started working out more. Health begets health. It's an upward spiral of health that happens when you start making the choices. And you can get a three-month payment plan. If you get a payment plan, it's $349 a month. Okay. Now, the WildFit Challenge starts August 5th. We have 1,500 slots. Remember, we have facilitators. We have Eric. It's a class environment, which is why the slots are limited. And this is all you have to do to sign up. So scan that QR code or go to mindvalley.com/wildfit/special. Okay, now I want to show you something else. So let me just quickly show you the website. That's a very important thing to get the discount. mindvalley.com/wildfit. Add the word special at the end, /wildfit/special. That's where you get the discount. Okay. So, and then you can see everything is on this page, incredible case studies, the curriculum, information on Eric. You can watch several videos of happy customer stories. Everything is on there. All right, now let's go back. Now, we know WildFit works. And because WildFit works, we give an incredible guarantee. Eric, will you state this guarantee, please?
Yeah, we wanted to make this as simple as possible. You do the program, you complete at least 80% of the program. I don't mean by time, I mean put in an 80% effort, like show up for the calls, connect with the community, be there. And if you are not happy with the results, not our measurement, but your measurement, then we simply offer you a refund. That's simple. We've run that for the
right.
Every year that we've had this program, we've offered that guarantee, and we can offer that guarantee because it works. We stand by it. Go through the program, follow it. I'm not saying you have to have 100% adherence. I'm saying follow along as best you can. And if you come to the end and you feel like you've put that honest effort in and you haven't got the results you're looking for, you get your money back. The one thing I would say to you is that don't go into it myopically focused on a single result you're looking for, because I know some of you, and we've talked a lot about weight loss in this particular context. I know some of you are particularly focused on weight loss, but I want you to know you're also likely going to see a dramatic improvement in your sleep, your sex drive, your overall energy, your emotional balance, and all those sort of things. And if you look at that holistically across the board, I am certain you're going to be absolutely thrilled with your decision to jump in.
Yeah. And the reason we are so certain about this is because, look, guys, I want to just share with you my picture. This is July 2015. This is basically just 9 months before I started WildFit. Look at my face there and look at my face in this Zoom. And notice how different I look, right? You can see how dramatically different I looked. Here I was at a meditation retreat, so I was really taking care of my spiritual self. I was not really eating well. I was not taking care of my body. So I told you when I turned 40, my health was a mess. That's how I looked. You can see even like my iPhone doesn't recognize me. from before. You dramatically shift so much, and that's why we're such a believer in this program. That's why we have this guarantee. Now, someone said, how do we sustain results? Eric, I'd love to just share my experience, and then I'd love for you to answer it.
Sure.
So what I do is, now I'm like every human being. I have kids, and we love chicken wings, and we love pizza, and we love ice cream occasionally, right? But every time during Christmas and New Year, the entire family gets together and we eat a ton, and we don't hold anything back. We eat a ton, and I want to confess, my kids and I also have this weird love for chili cheese Cheetos. So when January starts, I typically have 2 extra kilograms on me. Now, what I do is, around my birthday is Jan 14. After my birthday, I eat as much as I want, everything I want. Today I ate 2 croissants, but Jan 14 to Jan 28 every year, I do what is called a WildFit sprint. At least, Eric, I think I'm using the correct word. And all I do for those 2 weeks is I eat WildFit. I eat like week 12 of WildFit. I just do it 2 weeks a year, and that 2 kgs disappears. And so I reset every year, and it only takes me 2 weeks, and those 2 weeks are effortless. In those 2 weeks, I don't take alcohol, I don't take milk, I don't feed my croissant habit, but your body is so adaptable after you do WildFit. Now, Eric, how would you answer that?
Well, you're right on the track. What I would say is there's a great metaphor here relative to your health and, say, money. If somebody is in debt, then their debt is accumulating interest, which means when they spend, say, frivolously, they're making the problem worse and worse and worse. So one person who's in debt by, say, $20,000, who goes and buys a $500 toy, it's much more expensive for that person because they're paying interest on that $500. So they're going to pay, over 3 years, they're going to pay more like $1,200 for that $500 toy. The same thing happens with health. When your metabolism is off balance, when your health is off balance, a single donut is a devastating reality in that moment. It can actually reset your metabolism straight back to weight gain in that moment. When you get your metabolism straight and you develop what we call metabolic flexibility, and your body is at a body composition that you're happy with and what have you, then you have a great deal more flexibility, which means that a single donut isn't as damaging to you in the first place. And as Vishen talked about, you will understand the seasons. So when Vishen's talking about going on a WildFit sprint, one of the things you'll really come to understand is your metabolic function relative to evolved seasons. So you'll know, for example, you want to prepare for a special event and you want to take a couple of pounds off, or you want to firm up, or you want to prepare for an endurance race. You'll know what season to use to get you into that state. So for example, what Vishen's talking about is jumping in and going back to spring. So, I'm going into spring because that's the goal that I'm trying to achieve at this point. Whereas somebody else who's preparing for an endurance race might want to put on a little bit of fat so they get ready to run across the Sahara or something. Then they would know that they go into fall. And as they go into fall, that's going to support them that way. So you will understand your metabolism so very well that you'll be able to achieve whatever outcomes you want. But it starts with getting your metabolism balanced in the first place.
Right. And I just want to show you, this is what the platform looks like. So you can watch it on your desktop. You can watch it on your iPhone. You can even, if you have an Apple Vision Quest, you can even watch it on Apple Vision Pro. It's everywhere. We also have it on Apple TV. Now, notice it says 94 hours. There's a lot of content we give. We really over-deliver. You don't have to go through 94 hours, okay? It's just that we put up a ton of content and recordings. And you can see we've had over 500,000 people enrolled in WildFit. Look at that number. It's approaching 500,000. So this program truly works. Now, the guarantee is there. You want to join immediately. We have space for 1,500. And again, the website where you can sign up is mindvalley.com/wildfit/special. My team is pasting that in the chat. Eric, we have 6 minutes left. Shall we take some questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we've already put up the most common questions. The first one is, will this program work for me even if normal diets didn't work in the past?
To me, there's absolutely no question about that. I would put to you that the reason normal diets don't work in the past is because you're a human being, and those diets are not a match for being human being. And so when we run through these strategies and this nutrition and these behavioral changes, it will work. As I said before, people don't fail diets. And this is a really important thing. If you go to the average diet program and then you slip, or you have a treat, or you reward yourself, you are supposed to feel guilt and shame about that. Here's the joke. Guilt and shame are food triggers. And so the minute you do that, you damage your self-esteem slightly, and the next day it's harder to stay on track again. I'm sure many of you felt that cycle. What you're going to find with WildFit is it is carefully constructed to rebuild your self-esteem relative to food on a day-by-day basis. By the end of 2 weeks, and I'll pledge this to you, by the end of the first 2 weeks, 80% of you will raise your hand to this question. Do you now understand that your relationship with food is permanently altered and you're going to achieve your goals? You will know that solidly in that 2-week window. No question about it.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The next one is it suitable for vegetarians and vegans?
Yes, I will say this, that I was really surprised by that. I spent many years as a vegan, and I'm not anymore. Full disclosure. But I know that we have countless vegetarians and vegans that come into WildFit. In fact, I was surprised one day to log in to Facebook and find that there was a private group of a few thousand. It was WildFit for vegans. And it was like, wow, so fascinating. The program is about food psychology and best practices of nutrition. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, we're going to give you the best practices to make that work. And I will tell you that many of the vegetarians and vegans that come in, if they're not ideological, they will find themselves becoming more like, say, flexitarian than vegetarian. And some of them might try experimenting with some eggs and different things. So I am 100% to support you in eating the way you want to eat. And I will also always give you the truth of what I think is optimal.
Yeah. Okay. Will you be required to take expensive supplements or buy, shakes like many other diet companies want you to do, and then put yourself in the subscription program where you got to pay like $100 a month to have these shakes shipped to you?
Absolutely not. And I will tell you, when WildFit started to take off and we realized it was a business, we started hiring business consultants to help us to try to figure out what the right path forward for us was. And every single one of us has told us it's all about your shakes and your supplements, and that you'll make way more money on those things because they're long-term subscription. And we've been at this for 10 years. We've never done it. And I'll tell you, there are some supplements that I think can be useful, but not in this 90-day window at all. And after the fact, we don't supply them. We'll point you in the right direction. The only shake that you might have is we will teach you to make a particular smoothie at one point that is optional to you if you want to make it, but you don't have to go buy it. You don't have to subscribe to it. Absolutely not. And one more thing. I just want to say this about 90% of supplements. They're being sold on fear, not on reality. And so many of the supplements people are taking, they don't actually need. And so we've polled people over the years, and our average client saves $500 a year on supplements they no longer take and over-the-counter medication that they no longer take because they don't need them.
Right. I probably saved $1,000 a year just on frappuccinos. Will I need to exercise while on WildFit?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I would want to say to you that we will talk to you about what we call intentional movement. Do I think it's a good idea to leave the parking at the grocery store for families with their children and pregnant women, and yes, leave those and park at the back of the parking lot and walk a little more? We'll talk a little bit about what we call intentional movement. Take the stairs instead of if you're going to the gym, don't take the escalator up to the gym. But what I will say is, particularly for women, and if weight loss, and certainly if you're in that menopausal range, intensive exercise will be counterproductive until we get your body composition right. Then we can talk about exercise. During this 90 days, we will not be sending you to treadmills and exercise classes at all. We'll ask you to move a little, but only in your natural life.
Will it get rid of diseases?
Oh, guys, the lawyers are all over a question like this. Will it get rid of diseases? Does it cure anything? I'm just going to say this. No matter what injury or disease you're suffering with, if you hydrate your body properly, you nourish it properly, you reduce the toxicity, and you move it effectively, your body is way more capable of handling whatever the injury or the disease was. Now, to speak to a couple of things that are specific, will doing this reverse obesity? Yeah, I would say there's not much doubt of that at all. Here's a big one: diabetes. I saw a bunch of you guys talking in the chat about diabetes, and somebody suggested that diabetes is not reversible and all that kind of stuff. And what I want you to say is that, what I want to say about that is that you have a disease that has become a massive profit center. Type 2 diabetes is a modern disease, and it can, in vast majority of cases, be reversed in 6 to 8 weeks. And so there are some diseases that will respond very, very well, but I would say every injury and disease will improve when you improve your hydration, your exercise, your food, no question about it.
Okay, next question is, how should I prepare for the WildFit program?
You know, I'll tell you, don't change a thing. I really want you to hear me about this. I know some of you, actually, I want to hear this in the chat, by the way. This is what I want to see in the chat. How many of you, you've decided you're going on a diet, and this is not a diet, guys. This is behavior modification. It's not a diet. But how many of you have ever gone on a diet and your response to going on the diet was A, to start eating better now because what the hell, I've got a diet starting. That's option A. And option B is, what the hell, I'm starting a new diet. I may as well eat all the garbage out of the house really quickly. I want to know which one you guys do more often, A or B. That's what I'm really curious about. What I want you to know, yeah, I figured B would show up pretty heavily. A few A's, good for you. But I want you to know that in prep for WildFit, neither A nor B are a good idea. Neither A nor B are a good idea. I don't want you to do either one. What I want you to do is be as normal as possible right up until day one. And I'm going to tell you why. A huge part of this is about your psychology. A huge part of this is about your psychology. And so if you change your habits as you go into the program, we're not going to have the right petri dish to work with. So you don't need to prepare anything. Just live your life as normal and show up on day one as normal.
Okay, and here you go. So this is where you can go sign up. We look forward to having you guys in the program. Now, one of the things that you will see is that depending on the country you're in, you might see a slight discount. We know that people in India, people in Indonesia, it's a different economy, right? And so we want to make sure that we are able to reach as diverse a population as possible. I'm in Eastern Europe. I'm going to see a slightly different price. And so we do have discounts based on countries. So depending on where you log in, you might even see a lower price than what we just promised. So do check out the page, mindvalley.com/wildfit/special. Eric Edmeades, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. And Eric, would you like to stay back and answer more questions?
Yeah, I saw so many extra questions. So if you
Okay.
guys are, I'll make a deal. Sometimes when I've gone over on
So
a
I'm
webinar,
gonna
people like,
I'm gonna leave it to you, Eric. I have dinner
yeah,
plans with my son, and it's all you, okay? Take care.
enjoy. Say hello for me. Thank you. Here's the deal, guys. I'm happy to stay, but sometimes when I do that, people write to the help desk and go, "This webinar was scheduled for this long," and then they went over. So the webinar is officially over. But now let's hang out, and I'm gonna answer as many questions as I can. The best place for them is in the Q&A, and my team is or Mindvalley team is sending them to me. So I'm gonna run through as many as I can to get you guys everything you can. So Nima says, would this cure ADHD? My son has it, and he's an athlete, and it's interfering with his performance. So the word cure is really, really important here, particularly legally. I'm not going to offer to cure anything. What I will tell you is, in my experience, anecdotally, and according to many, many research papers, when you reduce certain foods, particularly highly processed foods and refined sugar and those types of things, the symptoms of ADHD are often mitigated. So I would suggest that I've seen enough anecdotal evidence to say that the conditions of ADHD are mitigated by, and this is less about metabolism, or sorry, less about nutrition than it is actually about metabolism. When somebody is on sugar spikes, they're eating sugar and the up and down, then various sort of neurodivergent patterns are amplified, like dyslexia, like ADHD, and the like. So I would guess that is the case. That you will definitely see, in my opinion, good results in that area. Jude said, would this work for menopausal women 55 plus who really want to get their health back and feel great? A bit of background: I work in a pretty stressful environment, video production. I eat relatively healthy, but mostly one meal a day. Jude's, we have a very broad market of people, everybody from athletic teens to, people in their 90s and what have you. But I will tell you, the largest segment of our market is exactly the group of people you're talking about. Women from the age of, say 40 up until about 65 or so. More of them go through this program than anybody else does. And one of the reasons is that they finally found something that works. And to understand, in a sense, what's going on in that menopausal zone is that your metabolism slows down very heavily because, traditionally speaking, your access to food might have become more restricted. And so your body has to become, in a sense, more efficient. And so what that means is you become better and better at storing fat. So our clients have reported to us repeatedly that their hot flashes go away, that their energy comes back, that they lose the weight that they put on through the menopausal process, or they stop gaining it at least. And this is one warning I have to issue you. For any women, if you're in the first sort of 12 months of menstruation cessation, I will tell you that there is a very high chance, like I would put to the point of 70% chance, that your menstrual cycles will restart. And I know that that might not be good news. I mean, once it's gone, you're kind of glad that it's gone. But the truth of the matter is that when you write your nutritional relationship and your menopausal relationship, you kind of dial the chronology back. You get younger a little bit. And so what happens is often that your menstrual cycles will restart, which is pretty good evidence that you're getting your hormones back into check. So yes, this is very, very effective for people that are in that transitional and postmenopausal range. Next one here. From Justin, is WildFit also good for teenagers? Absolutely it is. Now, I will say this, teenagers often don't have enough pain to really want to make the change. And so it's a little harder for them, but teenagers are some of the people that have gotten the very best results from us. Some years ago, I was doing a tour of Vancouver Island with a film crew, visiting wildfitters in their houses and, kind of doing that like sweepstakes type thing and visiting people. And I was sitting talking with this one woman, Amber, and she was telling me the story about, how her family did WildFit. And I said, well, how did you convince your kid? How did you convince River to do WildFit? And she said, I didn't convince him. He convinced me. He had seen me speak at an event in Vancouver and he convinced his mom to do it and they did it together. And he lost, I think it was about 20 pounds. As a teenager, that is a phenomenal amount of weight. But and this is all on camera, as they're telling the story, River's little brother comes out into the garden and they go, oh, tell Eric your story. And it turned out the year before that, he was, I think, 12 and he couldn't qualify to be on the track team. He then went through WildFit with his family and he was now the star of the track team. His athletic performance had picked up so heavily. No question about it. In fact, I would say this, I wish more teenagers would use it because the earlier you start to turn things around, the better positive impact it has. Like, for example, a lot better to not get diabetes in the first place than to reverse it. Obviously, reverse it if you must, but, an ounce of prevention and all that stuff. Zena. Oh, hang on. I lost a page here. Justin. Can WildFit help people have gout attacks? Absolutely. In my experience, that's the case. I know people who have had chronic gout, which is that like big swelling and inflammation often in the feet and toes. And it appears that sugar plays a very big role in that. It's not to say you can never have sugar, but it's to say that having a cyclical or healthier metabolic relationship, a seasonal metabolic relationship with sugar is very, very helpful in that area for sure. Ming, do we need to be master chefs to do this? No, Ming, you don't. You really, really don't. Don't worry about that. You'll find that in the community, first of all, we already provide lots of great, very simple, yummy, yummy recipes. And you'll find the community is incredibly creative. And so you'll get lots of help and resources from that. Great question. Zena. Let's see here. I have gone from feeling that I cannot live without my coffee and sweet to liking black coffee 90% of the time. What can you say about drinking black coffee regularly? Listen, guys, you got to have your pleasures in life and you have to choose which ones are yours. I will simply say this about coffee. Most of it is bad. If you're going to drink coffee, get the very best quality coffee you can. I know like Dave Asprey's got his Danger Coffee and John and Missy Butcher have their I'm trying to think of the name of their coffee, but it's good quality coffee. Somebody at Mind Valley can tell you. They've really done the research to make sure the beans don't have mold on them and all that kind of stuff. So first thing is, if you're going to have coffee, follow the same rule you will with your vegetables, with your meat, with your eggs. Get the best possible quality that you can. Now, the next thing about coffee is that, well, it is a drug. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It is a drug. And so what I would say to you is that if you're at the point where you need coffee to feel human, then coffee is using you. Whereas if you drink coffee occasionally and it makes you feel superhuman, then you're using the coffee. That's the one thing that I would look at. I almost never do caffeine, maybe 3-4 times a year. But when I do, I become superhuman because I never use it. Whereas if you're using it every day, then you kind of get to the point where like, I need to have it. And maybe that's not ideal. And, there's some impact on adrenal gland production and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not a big fan of the daily use of it. But at the end of the day, there are much worse things that we can change. And if coffee is your guilty pleasure, then I think that it's going to be okay, as long as it's not taking over your life. Ellie, is the course recorded? Yeah, this is very important. So the course is comprised of both pre-recorded video training That's why there is the home self-study version, and Vishen kindly just upgraded all of you to, like, if you get the home study course, you get the full thing. So the core thing is pre-recorded videos, and those videos there are instructional videos, there are FAQ videos, and there's a series of bonus videos on particular topics. Very, very good content, high value content, and also delivered in a kind of sticky way. I think you'll find that you don't need to use a lot of willpower to do this program, because what will happen is by about the fourth or fifth day, you're going to be enjoying the videos enough that you'll be looking forward to watching them. In fact, one of the most common comments we get at the help desk at the end of the 90 days is people writing going, but I need more videos, because we really have made it fun. And so you're going to enjoy that process a lot. And the live calls are also recorded. So if you miss one of the live calls, it'll be uploaded into the platform, and then you can catch it then. I will suggest to you that you attend as many of the live calls as you possibly can. Real magic happens on those calls. And there's something about watching them live that makes it even more magical, including the fact that, hey, you might get to talk to me or one of our facilitators directly about the progress you're making or the challenges you're having. So yeah, Ellie, I hope that helps. This is Andy. Andy says, I need help distinguishing between feeling nutritionally hunger and the other types of hunger. Andy, sometimes I do a full masterclass just on those 6 hungers. So I feel sorry I was so brief on it, but I'll go deeper for you now. There are, as I say, 6 hungers that drive your eating decisions. And it's never just one of them that triggers you to eat. The more of them that are triggered, the hungrier you will feel. And here's the sad part. The hungrier you feel, the more flexible you become about what you're willing to eat. In other words, when you get tragically hungry, you're willing to eat garbage. And that's, I'm sure some of you, how many of you have found that when you're not that hungry, you eat quite responsibly, but if you get famished, it's like, give me anything. And so what I want to suggest is that the 5 types of hungers that are not real, that are not about food, are thirst, which is exactly that your ancestors used to get water by eating a lot of their foods. And these days we have a lot of foods that have no water in them. So we get a little dehydrated, we go eat some food, we get more dehydrated, and it's a horrible cycle. Best way to neutralize it, make sure you're staying hydrated, like pre-hydration. If you're thirsty, it's too late. You should be drinking to prevent thirst, not to address it. Then you've got low blood sugar. If your blood sugar gets very low, then you'll suddenly find yourself reaching out for something. And guess what? It probably will be something with sugar in it. So a big part of what we address in the program is to show you how to ride your metabolic modes properly so that you don't have low blood sugar crashes. When you are largely processing sugar as your primary fuel source, then this is what your energy feels like. Tell me, and guys, I want to know if anybody can relate to this. Your energy kind of goes up and then down, up, and then in the afternoon, suddenly you need a nap, up and then down. And if that makes sense to you, I want to know how many of you have had this experience. Every now and again, you're speaking to somebody that you love, that you really care about, but your mouth is saying something different than what your soul wishes you were saying. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you're saying something, you're angry, you're snapping, you're being grumpy, or whatever the case might be. And there's a little voice inside your head going, why are you saying this to this person you love? That is almost always about low blood sugar. It's about low blood sugar. And I suspect that it's an evolutionary trait designed to make you more aggressive when you're starving, so you can definitely get your share of the food. So we definitely want to make sure that we address that low blood sugar. Variety. We all crave variety, but that's because ancestrally we needed to make sure we got a variety of food because there wasn't much variety. Now people want variety on their plate. You go out with your friends, you're like, oh, who wants to go for sushi? Oh, I had sushi on Thursday. People want variety every day. We have to address that emotionally, make sure that we aren't like oversaturated with variety. Emotional hunger is a really big one. And that's simply this. You're eating food to deal with an emotional. Guys, in the chat, tell me right now, what food cures depression? In the chat, what is it? What food for you cures depression? I want to know what it is. Popcorn, ice cream, chocolate, chips, chocolate, sugar, ice cream, chocolate. I can't. Wine is going to show up. I'm telling you, wine is coming. Wine, sugar, chocolate. Okay, now let me ask you another question. Do any of those things cure depression? Ever? No. I mean, okay, for 30 seconds. For 30 seconds, it cures the depression. But the truth is, then it makes it worse because you get this blood sugar spike and then you feel terrible. And then you have to turn back to that food again. So, Andy, the fact of the matter is, the only hunger that's real, that's really real, is nutritional hunger. The problem is that because our diet used to be controlled by Mother Nature, we don't really have specific cravings for nutritional hunger. What I mean is when you're missing a particular vitamin, you don't go crave that vitamin. You have generalized cravings. So, you can crave fat, you can crave sugar, you can crave something crunchy, you can crave generalized. But when you have a specific craving, like for a particular chocolate bar, that's an emotional thing every time. What we have is generalized hunger when we're nutritionally empty. And the best way to neutralize that, Pink Floyd said it, right? If you don't eat your meat, how can you have any pudding? Let's say substitute meat for nutritionally full meal. If you don't focus on the good stuff first, you're often going to crutch on the bad stuff. And then you're not going to be nutritionally hungry. The average American, and by the way, those of you who are not in America, don't get all arrogant and think that your country's not doing the same thing. It's happening everywhere. But statistically, the average American is literally starving to death for nutrition and overeating energy and stimulants. And that's a nightmare. And it's a big part of the emotional problems and the mental health problems that are happening everywhere. If you're starving to death and you're overeating sugar and stimulants and chemicals, you can imagine that you're not going to be the best version of yourself. And that's going to show up in your parenting, in your relationship, and in the way you are in traffic and the way you are at work. So you really, really want to address these issues. And one of the best places to start is increasing your intake of nutritious food. As I said, the historical reality of sapiens is our diet has, for millions of years, been comprised of seasonally available fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, meat, fish, eggs, poultry, if you're not vegetarian. And so if you focus on those things, you're going to make a really big difference. Again, some of you can do this masterclass. You can hear me say that and go do it. And if you've got the willpower, go do it. But if you're at all concerned about your ability to stick with stuff, then definitely join us for this program, because I'm telling you, no kidding, by the end of 2 weeks, you're going to really understand yourself better than ever relative to food. And you'll know why every diet has failed and why this time is absolutely going to be different. There's no question. Okay, next question here from ads. It's what is the expected daily commitment over the 90 days? That's a great question. It's not heavy. I recorded these videos. I went into the studio and I did 2 things to make them really nice for you. I made them entertaining and engaging, and I made them short. So I think the maximum videos are about 20 minutes long. I think maybe the intro video is a little longer, but on a daily basis, they're really short. Also, this is the video deployment. In the first 2 weeks, because we're working on your neurology, we're working on your beliefs about food and your self-identity and all that sort of stuff, there are short daily videos every weekday for the first 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, the first 2 weeks. After that, it goes to a Monday and Friday video discussing the enhancements and changes and exercises for that week. Then when we get to week 13, it'll go back to a daily series of videos, because week 13 is all about you integrating this stuff into your future, say, WildFit lifestyle. Like it's re-anchoring all the stuff in. It goes back to the other videos. Again, they're engaging and short. Then, of course, there are the live calls, and they're generally scheduled. I think they're an hour, maybe they're 90 minutes. And those happen on a weekly basis through the program. Great question. If you eat healthy and still gain weight, is this program a fit? Yes. Listen, I'm so glad you asked that. People often come up to me and go, well, Eric, I eat really healthy, but it's just not working. Well, I'm going to suggest that the definition of eating healthy is pretty wide, isn't it? I mean, you have to get your 5 a day. No, but here's what's really crazy. The 5 a day includes pizza. Pizza counts. Remember the whole 5 a day campaign? Like, get your 5 a day. It's 5 vegetables, fruits a day. Then the pizza lobby went out and they got pizza included in the 5 a day because, tomato sauce. Like, the definition of healthy is so unbelievably broad that people can be eating healthy and they really think they are. And they maybe even are, but they're not eating for metabolic health, right? So here's a good example. There are times in your life where you should be eating carbs, say, and there are other times in your life where you should be avoiding them for a while. And if you don't go through those seasonal cycles, then you can be eating really healthy and you can be gaining weight and even creating diabetes, even though you never ate a Mars bar. So yes, this will definitely change that for you. No question about it. I'm going to give you a really good, powerful anecdote about this. A woman was doing WildFit. She finished up the program and she was on one of the graduation calls. We often do like bonus graduation calls a month after the program. And she's on this graduation call and she goes, I can't believe I'm 3.5 years into a nutrition degree, not a nutrition certificate, a degree. She's 3.5 years in. She goes, I'm 3.5 years in, and I now realize everything that I've learned in that course is basically rubbish. It's like it's all her whole education was sponsored by the food industry. She's being turned into a salesperson for the food industry. She's being taught about the 4 food groups, total rubbish, created by Kellogg's. Like, no. She goes, I'm going to drop out of the degree program. And I go, wait a minute. What do you mean you're going to drop out of the degree program? She goes, well, it's pointless. And I go, no, it isn't. In our culture, the piece of paper is worth more than the knowledge. Isn't it true? Like, here's the truth. Somebody can have a tremendous amount of knowledge about something, but if they don't have a degree, they don't have the same respect as somebody who has a degree who has no knowledge. So I said, just bite the bullet and complete the last 6 months and get the piece of paper, and then you'll have the degree. It doesn't, use the real knowledge afterward, but anyway, and that's exactly what she ended up doing. All right, this is from Stephen Turkington. One of my problems is eating lunch at work and not being organized enough to do food prep. Does WildFit work for people with office jobs? Yes. Yes, it does. You're going to learn a lot of principles that will help you to manage this, including you're going to find really interesting ways to prepare food that's much easier than you ever thought, or ordering food. But you're also going to learn how to order from menus. I'm going to give you a clue. I don't know if you've ever thought of this, guys. Tell me in the chat if you like it, but I want you to tell a menu. A menu, stay at a restaurant or a cafeteria or what have you, a menu is just a badly organized list of ingredients available at that place. And so what I want to suggest to you is that you start being willing to be that person who's willing to customize their orders. Like my eldest daughter, she is that person. She walks in and she goes, I want this, and I don't want seed oils, and you can do it with butter, and you can do it this way, and only salt and no sauce, and I don't want... And she's willing to be that person. And I know some people don't have the self-esteem for that. They're like, oh, I don't want to be that person. But let me tell you something about that person. That person does not likely maintain or even end up with obesity. That person doesn't end up with diabetes. That person doesn't die of a heart attack. That person doesn't likely develop cancer. That person has the self-esteem to say, I am here spending my money in your restaurant, and I want the food the way I want it. I want it healthy. And you'll learn a lot of those skills and how to have those communications and food prep and stuff. So, Stephen, you're in good hands. Tabitha, so it's not a diet, it's about behavior. Tabitha, I'm so glad you put it that way. So let me be very clear. The word diet has been hijacked. It doesn't mean what you think it means. Let me be very clear that if you're watching the Big Cat Diaries or National Geographic, or you're watching a wildlife show, and the commentator comes on and starts talking about whatever animal the show is about, they're going to say something like this. Here we have Loxodonta africana, the African elephant. The African elephant's diet consists of eating 200 pounds of grass and bark and seasonally available fruits, and drinking 70 liters of water every day, something like that. Notice they didn't say, this elephant is on a diet. They talk about the diet as a static reality for a given species. That's what diet is supposed to mean. Diet, the original definition is diete, which means way of life. It's the way of life. And so when you talk about going on a diet, that's this new version of the word diet, which means temporary alterations to your eating patterns in order to fit into some outfit for a special occasion. That is not what it's supposed to mean. And the whole diet industry is based on temporarily change to achieve temporary. No, what we're talking about here is diet revision. When we're done, you will have a new diet, a new lifestyle that you will live for the rest of your life. And as a consequence, you will avoid many of the diseases, you will likely live longer and more pleasurably, and you will avoid a bunch of medicine and symptoms and so on. So it is not a diet. It is a lifestyle revision or an upgrade or a change to your existing diet. Thank you. Great question. Let's see here. I still have more questions, guys. You guys are so there. I love it. Tammy says, does the program provide a daily food guide and recipes, or is it general such that these foods... It's a little bit of both, Tammy. I mean, we definitely provide recipes, but there's no meal plan. There's no like, here's your meal plan. You know the old expression, like you can teach a person to fish, you can feed a fish, you can give a person a fish and feed them for the day, or you can teach them how to fish and feed them for a lifetime. This program is designed to feed you for a lifetime. So we're not going to spoon feed you metaphorically or literally. We're not going to spoon feed you with like, here's your meal plan. We're going to give you principles from which you can operate and recipes to support you in making it happen. So it's a little bit of both, Tammy. I hope that helps. It's very important because listen, if we start giving you, it's all meal plans all the time. And I specifically didn't do this. Early consultants told us, provide meal plans, meal plans. You know what we found? is that meal plans are a great way to addict clients to the program, so they have to stay with you forever. But then they go on a vacation or they go somewhere, they didn't have their meal plan. They never understood how the meal plans are being built. They don't have freedom. So we're here to help you be independent, to be able to live this way on your own. Andy Capit, my problem is more about being hungry and eating at night. How can help? WildFit help? Boy, Andy, I'm with you. I understand that a lot. And I'll tell you that a big part of it is this. The average person living in civilization at the moment is overeating stimulants that make them feel hungry and under eating nutrients. So by the time you get to bed at night, your body's like, Jesus, man, we need something here. You got to get me some food. And so it's a vicious cycle. And I will tell you for certain, by about week 6 of this program, you will have that under control. If not 100% under control, it'll be so diminished that it won't be a thing. Like you might feel it, but you won't give into it. It will be very, very weak. And the reason being is the reasons being, you're going to understand your food psychology unlike anything you've had before. You're going to be more nourished than you've ever been before, more hydrated maybe than you've ever been before, depending on your water habits. But more than that, you're going to understand your metabolism. You're going to have worked on resetting your metabolism. When you burn sugar as a primary fuel source, which is a season, then you will find these ups and downs of cravings and hunger. When you burn fat as a primary fuel source, or some of you will be aware of like ketosis, when you're in that season, you will find that those hunger swings just don't exist. So Andy, the help is on the way. Annie, I've been vegan for over 30 years and I would like to gain weight. I'm healthy and strong, but I can't seem to gain more muscle. I don't want to not be a vegan. My health is a concern. Is hair thinning? Oh, Annie, that's such a difficult question for me to answer. Listen, I was a vegan for a long time. I understand the reasons for it. I understand the thoughts behind it, and I will support you being a vegan, going through the program as best I can. But I'm going to suggest to you that if you want to gain muscle and you want really, really healthy hair and healthy nails that don't break and that kind of stuff, you need full suite amino acids, full suite proteins, not just protein, but you need the complete suite. And they're not available in plants that easily. It's really difficult with plants. I'm not saying it can't be done, but you're either going to need to start looking at some supplementation to help you with those things, or you might need to become less ideological and slightly more like, say, flexitarian. And you don't maybe have to go out and eat meat, but maybe you want to introduce some eggs or that kind of thing. And you don't have to do that, but I'm always going to tell you how it is. I've been at this for over 25 years. I'm telling you that you can be a vegetarian or vegan if you want to, but if you're going to do that, there are some steps you're going to need to take, and there's some supplements. You're going to have to look at iron. You're going to have to look at protein. You're going to have to look at B12. There are some things you're going to need to do to optimize, and we'll support you on that as you go through the program. I'm just going to say that if you want to gain weight, then the 2 big keys are putting in the right stuff and then making sure that you make your muscles fail, work out hard enough that they fail. If you put the right materials in, which is all amino acids, all 9 of the essential amino acids, which of course are available in meat, fish, and eggs very, very easily. You can get them other ways too. And water is so important to be hydrated because your body can't build muscle without water, and salt. And if you make sure that you do those things, then you can definitely stimulate muscle growth. It'll just be a little easier if you're a little bit flexible. Maybe we can talk more about that inside the program if that can help you. Thank you, Annie. Bruno, you briefly mentioned sleeping on an empty stomach. Can you elaborate on how and why it's a good idea to sleep on an empty stomach? Yeah, I can. I want you to imagine that you have a factory that's running 24 hours a day. When do you ever get to do maintenance? like, when do you ever get to do maintenance on the factory? And so in a very real sense, when you go to sleep on an empty stomach, it allows everything to rest, and you will sleep better. You will feel better, and your digestive system will cleanse itself better in every possible way. But then there's some other reasons. One is that when you have an empty stomach, when you have an empty stomach and you're going to sleep, your body's going to start producing growth hormone, and growth hormone is really, really, really good for you. Like, it's the fountain of youth. And if you eat like highly insulin triggering foods, insulin reacts badly with growth hormone and diminishes it. So another good reason for going to sleep on an empty stomach, maybe just not eating 3 or 4 hours before you go to bed would be a good idea. I hope that helps. Suzanne says, is there a lot of food prep? Well, it depends. I mean, I've had times in my life where I've done a lot of the food prep because I really enjoy that. But there's other times, and particularly if you live in the U.S. or many European countries, there are lots of ways that you can pre-order food once you understand the organizing principles. So I happen to like to get my hands involved in the food. I like to do that, but it doesn't have to be a part of the whole thing. Some people just don't enjoy cooking. You're going to learn strategies for dealing with it where you don't need to do that. Susanna, I hope that that is helpful. That's all the questions that I have in my screen, Mind Valley. I think that that's a wrap for us, guys. You guys, I so appreciate you being here, still here, staying late with me. Thank you guys so very much for all the questions, and I'm ready for you. We're gonna get started, and like I said, between now and the start date, don't change anything. Don't change anything at all. Don't be good. Don't be bad. Just be you. And when you get there, we'll really learn about you, your relationship with food, and we will begin to create change. I'm telling you right now, you will mark your life as before and after this process, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you guys all very much. Thank you, Mind Valley. Thank you, Vishen, for making all this possible. And see you all soon. Stay wild in the meantime.
Recordings